What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis coming to y'all with a video for Sunday. The playoffs about to. The conference finals is about to start. I had one more idea that I watched and listened, and um, I even thought to myself, Paul George has been a hot topic. He got traded from Indy, where he made it to the conference finals multiple times. He hit some big shots in those series, stepped up. Even when he lost to Cleveland last year, he had astronomical numbers to a certain extent for a guy that was the focus defensively. Because all you had to do is really slow down PG, and they didn't really have that many weapons other than that. But they still fought Cleveland tough, and it could have been a sweep if they knock down some shots and makes the right play. But if you don't, you lose, and that's what happened. And he had a great series, all around series with his rebounds, assists, efficiency, and scoring against the Toronto Raptors back 2 years ago. So I definitely think one thing is Paul George is a guy that a lot of people like because he's a guy that plays with a lot of confidence. He's a guy that loves the jump shot and loves the three, and that's the era we in. Everybody wants to get to the paint. Everybody wants to shoot the three. But hear me out here, and I know y'all do anyway, but what happened if Paul George went to Houston? And the only reason why I say that is because if you look at a guy like Trevor Ariza, you look at a guy like PJ Tucker, you look at a guy like Luke Richard Baamute, you look at these players and you say they got good bodies that they can throw at KD. They have some bodies and some length and some athleticism and some toughness in PJ Tucker, who's shorter than Baamute and Ariza, but they got the length, the speed, the athleticism to bother LeBron. It ain't gonna slow him down because nobody can stop the best players in the world. But slow him down and make it a little tough and make him work a little bit, make him think a lot more, and that can help make more mistakes. But you also look at Kawhi Leonard. You also look at LeBron. And these are guys that you have to stop too. Remember, it ain't like you beat Golden State, you make it to the finals. You got to beat these other teams too. Everybody said OKC is the perfect matchup against Golden State, but they couldn't even beat Utah. So you still have to think in that sense where you're not going to always play Golden State. You might not even see Golden State. So you can't just build your team to beat Golden State when you still have other teams in your conference with different personnel and different matchups and different people and different coaches and different strategies and different type of talent on the court. So you can't just build your team to beat one team, because if you can't beat the other team, there's no point in beating that team, because you got to beat that team once, and you still got other teams to beat alongside your journey to the NBA Finals. So that's the point that a lot of people leave out. But you think about it. PG averaged 20 points a game this year playing with Russell Westbrook. 21.9. He shot 43% from the field and 40% from three, which is exactly what you want in Houston. You get that guy that you can kick it out to the corner and he knocked down. Not only can he knock down that, he can go a little deeper. Not only that, he can take contested threes and tough threes and knock that down. So that's also good late in the shot clock. Not only that, you got a guy that can play within the system and create his own shot. He can come off screens. He can handle the ball. He can knock down tough twos. He can knock down contested threes. Not only that, he can play as a team player on or off the ball. And you got an offensive genius in Mike D'Antoni, and you got two other stars that can shoot the three and create their own shot and open it up for Capella and whoever else on the court with them. And if they're a shooter, you got three people that can handle the rock and shoot the tree. And then you think about that, that sounds a lot like Golden State. A lot like Clay, a lot like Steph, and a lot like KD. And you have that rock in Capella that give you that inside presence, offensively and defensively, that Golden State don't have. You can say KD, but he be on the perimeter a lot too. Clint Capella is a guy, offensively, he won't be on the perimeter. He's only going to score and set screens to go inside and finish and give you that option. And to me, Paul George is a better player than Trevor Ariza. He's an upgraded, enhanced version of Trevor Ariza. He does what Trevor Ariza does more efficiently and give you more than that. And the reason why I say that is because Houston and Daryl Morey, he has been building up this roster to make a run. He said he's obsessed with beating Golden State. And when you look at this roster, you look at CP and you look at and James Harden, and you look at Capella. Other than that, and Ryan Anderson, you have Eric Gordon. He's a tradable player at this point of his career. Even though he struggled a little bit, people would love to take Eric Gordon on. And his deal is actually going into next season. You don't have to keep him longer than that because he only signed for a year. So this season, going into his third season, you only got him, and then he become an aspiring deal. Then he becomes even more attractive because he comes right off your salary cap, especially if you're a team rebuilding. Giving you a guy that can, score the basketball or come off your bench as a six man if you're a team that's trying to get over the hump and need a guy that can put the ball in the basket and space out the floor. Then you look at a guy like Bamuta. He's on a cheap contract. You look at Ariza. He's a free agent. So that comes off your cap. But if you do re-sign him, he's not going to take up too much of your cap because he's not a great player. He's on the decline age-wise and playing-wise. So you still have all these other players on the roster that's tradable with their contracts. Probably the most untradeable contract they have is Ryan Anderson. And he actually is an asset to teams because even you look last year, they won 55 games and got out of the first round with Ryan Anderson being the starter. He's not the greatest defender, but he's an elite three-point shooter that can shoot anywhere on the court, whether it's mid-range or three, and go beyond the three-point line. And he's the modern-day four. He just can't handle the ball as well and score in the paint as well, but he's still a threat because you have to guard him. And if you leave him any type of space, he's going to, dead your eyes and knock it open. So we all talking about LeBron. LeBron is obviously better than Paul George. But remember, when they couldn't get LeBron, when they couldn't get these players, they tried to get Chris Bosh. So, if you get KD or you get LeBron, you still got to have that backup plan because your goal is still to win a championship if you're Daryl Morey in the Houston Rockets organization because you have James Harden and he's entering his 30s. And you have the ability to give Chris Paul that 5-year deal because he played this season with the Rockets. Not only that, you can go into the luxury tax to keep guys that's yours on your roster. So getting Chris Paul to that 5-year deal, they can dig a little deeper to keep him because he's already on this Rockets team. So at the end of the day, I personally rather have Paul George. And you can say, well, they're going to have to give up a lot of their talent to give him, to trade for him or at least move all those contracts around to teams that want him to clear up that cap space so they can make a move at Paul George. I think that's smart answer, but I can't really give that much credit to it because if you have an opportunity to get one of the best players in the world, one of the top 10, top 15 players in the world, even like OKC, you have to do it. And you're borderline championship. You're the number one team in the NBA. You have one of the top 5 players in the league. You have one of the other top 10 players in the league. And then you have that third guy and a guy that does all the dirty work in Capella. And honestly, you match up well against the Golden State Warriors. Kind of like a bootleg Golden State, but anything can happen in the playoff series. Anybody can get hot. Anybody can go cold. Anybody can get injured. So you want to have your best opportunity while still having a chance to beat them even if they're not healthy. And I think adding if you can't get LeBron, if you can't get KD, if you can't get Boogie in them, looking at Paul George can be an ideal fit because they move the ball around. They have the floor spacing with them. And he as a defender that can give that length and that size to the Kawhis, the LeBrons, and the KDs. Plus, he's a guy that you can still do with the all-switch defense. You can switch everything still with Paul George because he's long, athletic, and lanky. He's one of the best two-way players in the league. So you still can switch everything. So adding Paul George only will destroy your roster depth. But like you seen Daryl Morey last year, he traded for Chris Paul. He got rid of Decker, who had a solid season. He got rid of Harrell. He got rid of Patrick Beverly. But how did he react when all those people go? It's fine. People said they lost a lot of great players that know their roles. But what happened? He comes in this season. He gets the Joe Johnsons. He gets the Brandon Wrights. He gets the Gerald Greens. And these are quality players that can make an impact in the minutes that they will be given. And we done seen that with Gerald Green. And we done seen that with Joe Johnson when he played in the regular season. That you can give these guys minutes and they can produce. That's what you have to do next year. If you have an opportunity to land Paul George, you don't stress about it. You don't get mad about it. You don't care about the people you have to get rid of, because most players in the NBA is replaceable. One of the number one things I always tell my subscribers is that we live in the day and age where the internet has taken over, so you have access to all these players because of League Pass, because of the traveling, the scouting. You know, you looking at players you can find in the mid draft. You're looking at the players that's undrafted. You're looking at the players that's showing improvement in summer league or not getting picked up after summer league. Then you have the NBA players that didn't make any roster. Then you have the players that went overseas and showed that they still can play, and you can pick them up. Then you have the players that get bought out of that contract and become available, so you can pick them up as a bench player or as a key piece, like we've seen with Ersan, Marco, and Corey Brewer in OKC. And all those players contributed. Even Greg Monroe with Boston, all those players has contributed to success with their teams, but they didn't really have to pay anything for them. And they're veterans that know how to win and have playoff experience. And you add in that for 1 to 2 to 3 million, maybe 5 million combined, and they want to come to Houston. Why? Because you have CP3, Chris Paul, you have Chris Paul, James Harden, Paul George, and Clint Capella. You have that nucleus. People going to say, hey, if I can't get on the Warriors, if I can't get on Cleveland, I can't get on Boston, can't get on Philly, I want to go to Houston because they have the next best chance of winning the championship. And if they add a guy like Paul George, who is an upgrade over by Mute Chervariza anyway, combined, I would take that chance and try to get that guy to sign with my team. And Daryl Morey is a guy that can make these moves. He's a guy that's smart, and he's a guy that's ahead of the game plan. You know, I think Houston would eventually get a championship, but, you know, you still got to try to make the best moves available. Remember, he was always trying to get that third guy, and it was supposed to be Chris Bosh. It was after he had James Harden and Dwight Howard, they wanted to bring in Chris Bosh. They couldn't get him. They wanted to bring in Carmelo, couldn't get him. And now he has Chris Paul down there, and he looks committed. They're the number one team in the NBA this year. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. The only thing they haven't done is win a championship and get to the finals. So if they come up short against Golden State, you've seen how great this team is. You've seen that D'Antoni can get you that far, even though he did it with Phoenix already when they lost to the Lakers. Now you have to continue to build on beating Golden State, and adding Paul George and replacing the bench again will be a step in the right direction for this team. Who would you rather have, Ba Mute, Tucker, or Ariza, or Paul George? Ask yourself that question. And worst case scenario, you end up getting Paul George. You got to get rid of Tucker. You got to get rid of Gordon. And you get a guy in PG that can replace Gordon in points, that can do the same thing and have the versatility as Tucker or Ariza. And you still can, you know, fill up your bench with players at the end of the year, in the middle of the year with the buyouts, and get a veteran that can come in and get you some points off the bench. And like I said, at the end of the day, even in the playoffs, you're going to shorten rotations, and you're going to limit guys' minutes and rely more on your best starting lineups, your best lineups in general, and your starters to bring home games, because you're playing against the best coaches, the best teams, and the best players. So you want to have your best out there too. So the bench might not even be that much of a thing come playoffs unless injuries are made. Then you will want to have quality players on that bench, which I think Daryl Morey will already know. And to be honest, I think he already knows if he can't get LeBron or KD this year because they can opt out of their contracts. I think Paul George was already on his radar, especially when you know that Trevor Ariza is a free agent this year. So think about it. Let me know what you guys think. Check out my website at analysisplayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. Check out my Facebook page at analysisplayground.com. Like on there to show support. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm gone.